The light in the chamber dimmed and a low hum filled the air. Rows of alien representatives sat behind curved, transparent panels, their faces glowing under the pale blue illumination of the Galactic Council Hall. Thousands of species had gathered there, their voices echoing in hundreds of tones that mixed like an orchestra of dissonance. The room itself was vast, built inside a hollowed moon that orbited the Council's capital world. The ceiling was made of energy, glass that showed the swirling nebula beyond, a storm of violet and gold that seemed alive. In the center of that colossal hall stood a single human, an old man named Arthur Hale. His back was slightly bent, his gray hair uneven, his uniform faded with age. No guards, no entourage, no weapons. Just one frail man surrounded by the most powerful civilizations in existence. The Council Chancellor, a tall reptilian being with obsidian skin and 4 golden eyes, spoke with a deep vibrating voice that shook the floor. Humanity stands accused of technological violations and destabilizing peace among the stars. You have built weapons forbidden by the Concord. You have hidden machines that defy natural law. His voice grew sharper. And this, he pointed one long finger toward the human, is who your people send to answer for these crimes. Laughter erupted around the chamber. 100 species joined the mocking sound. Clicks, hisses, metallic tones, and psychic whispers overlapping into one cruel wave. Arthur didn't move. He simply adjusted his collar, eyes calm. The laughter rolled past him like wind over stone. When it finally faded, he spoke softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Yet somehow every translator in the chamber picked it up clearly. You called for a representative, he said. You didn't specify the age requirement. The Chancellor's expression tightened. Do not play games, human. You are here to explain why Earth has begun activating forbidden systems near your home star. Arthur met his gaze without fear. Because your patrols entered our orbit without consent. Gasps and murmurs filled the air again. The Council rarely heard defiance, especially from a species so young. A gelatinous ambassador from the Intar Collective rippled with amusement. Your kind barely left your planet a century ago. You think you can threaten the Council? Arthur looked around the room, his voice steady. No, humanity doesn't threaten. We prepare. A cold silence followed. Then, deep in the chamber's corner, one of the Council's analysts, a blue-skinned being with 6 eyes, raised a data tablet. Chairman, I am detecting unauthorized signals emanating from the human's device. Instantly, several security drones dropped from the ceiling, their plasma arms charging. A crimson light swept across Arthur's body. The Chancellor shouted, "Deactivate all human frequencies immediately." But before anyone could move, the light in the entire chamber flickered. The energy glass ceiling shimmered and turned dark. The Council's control panels flashed with symbols none of them recognized. The holographic banners of the Galactic Concord dissolved, replaced by an image of Earth and rotating slowly, its oceans gleaming like sapphires. The image filled the room, projected through the Council's own systems. Every translation device, every screen, every communication feed synchronized to one single frequency, Earth's. The Council erupted in confusion. Who authorized this transmission? Cut the link. Security, respond! But nothing worked. Systems ignored their commands. The Chancellor pounded the desk. Human, explain yourself. Arthur raised his eyes to the floating image of his home planet. I told you, he said softly. We prepare. The alien guards stepped closer, weapons humming, but Arthur didn't flinch. The air around him grew charged, a faint vibration spreading through the floor. Then, without warning, all power in the chamber died. The walls went black. The hum of the station's reactor vanished. Only Arthur's voice remained. You've studied us for centuries. You called us reckless, emotional, unpredictable. But tell me, if you thought us primitive, why do you fear us so much? A dim light returned, not from the chamber's system, but from Arthur's wrist device. It projected streams of golden code that twisted upward like threads of light. They formed a brief holographic shape, the outline of a colossal structure orbiting near Jupiter. Before anyone could react, the hologram faded. The power came back a moment later. The Council systems rebooted one by one. The Chancellor leaned forward, his tone trembling now. What did you just show us? Arthur smiled faintly. A reminder. The Chancellor's voice hardened. You are bluffing. Earth cannot possess such technology. Arthur clasped his hands behind his back. Believe what you wish, but remember this. Humanity learned long ago that survival doesn't come from strength alone. It comes from patience. The chamber fell silent again. Delegates exchanged uncertain looks. A representative from the crystalline species leaned forward, her body glowing faintly. Old human, she said, why would your people send you? A soldier of another age? You're no diplomat. Arthur tilted his head. Because I've seen what comes after diplomacy fails. The Chancellor slammed his fist down, shaking the podium. Enough riddles. The Council will deliberate on Earth's punishment. You will remain here under guard until the vote concludes. Arthur turned toward the exit doors, his movements slow and deliberate. Do what you must. I'll wait. As two guards escorted him toward the holding area, whispers spread through the chamber. Some aliens believed the human had just performed an advanced hack. Others thought it was psychological warfare. But a few, the oldest races, remained completely silent, their expressions tight. They remembered old rumors about Earth, about a forgotten war in the early years of expansion when human ships vanished into deep space and never returned. When the doors closed behind Arthur, the Chancellor leaned toward his aides. Find out who this man truly is. He's no ordinary envoy. Deep inside the holding corridor, Arthur sat calmly in the dim light. The walls shimmered with faint blue patterns as the station system scanned him for any hidden devices. He waited, eyes half closed. Minutes later, a young alien officer entered. Tall, insectoid, armored in bronze plates. Human, it said, voice distorted through a translator. You have violated council code. You will remain until interrogation. Arthur looked up slowly.
What do you want to know?
The alien hesitated, its antennae twitching. The signal that interrupted the chamber, and what was it? Arthur's eyes softened. A heartbeat. The alien tilted its head. Explain. He leaned forward, resting his hands on his knees. Every system you use and your translators, your networks, runs through what you call the Concord Lattice. It was built on shared code 2 centuries ago. Guess who helped write the base framework? The alien blinked. That's impossible. The lattice predates humanity's arrival in the stars. Arthur gave a faint, tired smile. No, it predates your awareness of us. The alien stepped back, uneasy. You're lying. Arthur's gaze remained calm. Then you have nothing to fear. Before the officer could reply, a low chime echoed through the corridor, an emergency signal from the council chamber. The alien turned toward the wall display, its voice trembling. They're calling for lockdown. The chamber systems are reacting again. Arthur closed his eyes. Of course they are. Inside the council chamber, chaos had erupted once more. The floating image of Earth had returned. Only this time a faint pulse surrounded it, expanding outward like a ripple through water. The pulse moved across the holographic display, touching every planet symbol on the council's galactic map. The entire galaxy projection flickered. Someone's accessing restricted archives, shouted an aide, shut it down. But the map froze and the words appeared across the central display in ancient Terran English. Do not interfere. The Chancellor stared, eyes wide. Who sent that command? No one answered. Every console in the hall had gone dark again, leaving only the rotating image of Earth glowing in the void. The Chancellor's voice cracked as he turned to his aides. Find the source, now! Far away, sitting quietly in his cell, Arthur Hale watched the flickering light on the wall and whispered to himself, They've forgotten how easily we learn. He leaned back, closed his eyes and waited. Outside, in the silent reaches of space, a dormant construct near Jupiter stirred for the first time in 50 years. Its surface glowed faintly, golden lines tracing across its metallic skin like veins coming alive. Inside the council station, none of the delegates knew what they had just awakened. But the old human did. He had waited for this moment longer than any of them could imagine. He smiled softly, the expression of a man who carried both regret and inevitability. You wanted to see humanity's power, he murmured under his breath. You will. And far beyond the chamber walls, something vast and ancient answered his thought with a low, rising hum. The council had mocked the old human. But before long, they would understand exactly who and what he really was. The chamber's alarms blared again, and every council member froze. The image of Earth hovered in the center, rotating slowly, glowing brighter with every pulse. Every species had an instinctive reaction: panic, anger, fear, curiosity. Yet One human sat quietly in a holding corridor far away, watching the chaos through a small security feed. Arthur Hale's face remained calm, almost serene. He had anticipated this moment for decades. He leaned back in the chair, fingers lightly tapping the armrest. Outside, the council chamber was in disarray. Alien voices clashed with one another. Orders overlapped, and yet the humans' simple strategy held them in place. Arthur's device, a small bracelet on his wrist, had synchronized with every major communication node in the station, sending harmless but unnerving pulses across their systems. The Chancellor roared, his voice echoing like rolling thunder. "Human, you will explain yourself now. Who gave you the authority to access our networks?" Arthur's eyes lifted slightly from the screen. "You gave it to me," he said softly, "by calling humanity here." A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. Several of the older species, the ones who remembered the earliest wars of the Terran expansion, began to murmur among themselves. Earth had not always been insignificant. Long ago, humans had vanished into unexplored sectors of the galaxy, leaving behind legends of impossible technology and fleet disappearances. Now Arthur Hale, a single old man, reminded them of those forgotten truths. The Chancellor's claws tapped the podium nervously. "Your people are supposed to be primitive. How could a species so young control whatever this is?" Arthur tilted his head, watching the holographic Earth pulse again. "Primitive? Perhaps. Unpredictable? Certainly. But dangerous? That is for you to decide." The Council's security teams moved in closer, hovering around the old human's containment area. The alien officer who had spoken with him earlier stepped forward, antennae twitching. "Human, what you have done, this network you activated, are you trying to threaten the Council?" Arthur shook his head slowly. "Threaten? No. I am showing you potential." The officer's mandibles clicked nervously. "Potential for what?" Arthur leaned forward, voice calm but carrying weight. "Potential for understanding. Humanity is often judged by appearances, by what you think you see, but what you see is never what we truly are." Far above, in the main chamber, the holographic Earth pulsed again. Delegates whispered in alarm. A crystalline ambassador's voice rang out, full of sharp resonance. "This display is beyond your explanations, old human. Stop pretending your species is a match for the galaxy." Arthur smiled faintly. "Pretending? No. I am reminding you of the past." At that moment, the feed in his holding area flickered. It was not just a visual display now. It contained detailed schematics of structures orbiting near Jupiter. Massive, long-dormant human constructs, left untouched for decades, glowed faintly in golden lines on the holographic map. They were unfinished, incomplete in appearance, yet the scale was incomprehensible to any species present. The officer beside him gasped. These are ancient human constructs. They were never supposed to be active." Arthur's eyes didn't leave the display. They were never supposed to be noticed until now. Outside in the chamber, a young analyst from a species of octopus-like beings raised her tentacle nervously. "Chancellor, the frequency of these signals is unlike anything in the lattice. They are intelligent and old, very old." The Chancellor's 4 golden eyes darted across the chamber. "Who is responsible for this?" A pause. Silence. The voice of the old human echoed from the holding corridor through the hacked systems. "I am." The Council froze. Every species felt it, the calm certainty in his voice. They could not trace it, could not block it, and most importantly, they could not intimidate it. "Impossible," muttered the blue-skinned analyst. "A single human cannot interface with all our networks at once. Not even your legends claim that." Arthur's calm voice continued. "I am not a legend. I am what remains when humanity plans ahead. I am what you dismissed and what you will regret underestimating." The Chancellor's clawed hand clenched the podium. "Contain him. Lock all signals." Alarms blared. Lights flashed. Drones moved closer to Arthur's cell. But every step they took, Every attempt to isolate the signals failed. The holographic Earth expanded, pulsing in tandem with the golden lines that connected it to the constructs near Jupiter. The Council realized then that the human was not acting alone. He was a link to something the galaxy had long forgotten. A trembling ambassador from a gas-based species gasped. "The constructs, they are still active. We never deactivated them. We believed humanity dismantled everything after the Titan Wars." Arthur nodded slowly. "I dismantled what you could see. What you could not see remained. And now you are observing it." The chamber's tension grew. Alien voices, once confident, now quivered. The very air seemed to vibrate with uncertainty. None of the Council had faced a situation where one individual, one frail human, could reach through their systems without force, without aggression, and yet command attention. Arthur's mind drifted briefly to the past. Half a century ago, he had been a Titan commander, part of humanity's secret initiative that merged cognition and starcraft. The Council had thought the project destroyed after the Titan Wars. They had been wrong. Very wrong. Inside the holding corridor, he allowed a faint smile. No alarms, no pressure, no threats could force him to act hastily. The galaxy had called, and he had come, not as a soldier, not as a diplomat, but as the final observer of humanity's hidden power. The officer beside him took a step back, confused and cautious. You are alone?" Arthur turned his eyes slowly toward the alien. "Yes. Alone, yet connected to everything humanity left behind. You called this a trial, but it is nothing more than a reckoning. You will see what you underestimated." Meanwhile, in the Council chamber, whispers spread rapidly. The old human had done the impossible. He had seized their attention, forced the entire assembly to acknowledge the threat of a species they had long dismissed. Panic replaced ridicule. Confusion replaced confidence. The Chancellor's claws flexed as he leaned forward. "You have power, human. I do not doubt that. But show restraint, or the Council will act against you." Arthur's gaze did not waver. "I show only patience. You should do the same." A young representative from a bird-like species with mirrored wings chirped nervously. "If what he says is true, if these constructs and networks are active, then humanity has been planning all this time, all while we ignored them." A murmur spread through the chamber. The reality of the situation began to dawn on the Council. The old human was not bluffing. The systems had been prepared, waiting silently, unobserved. Arthur rose from the chair in the holding corridor, every movement slow, deliberate. He did not need to threaten, did not need to attack. His presence alone caused the Council to react, to hesitate. From the chamber, the Chancellor bellowed, "Contain him! Now!" The command fell flat. The systems they relied on had been temporarily overridden, and every attempt to act was slowed, disrupted, confused. Arthur Hale walked toward the observation window, his back still bent, yet carrying an air of command that no army could rival. Outside the Council station, the golden pulse around Earth continued. It stretched across the holographic display, touching each star system symbol as though marking every planet in the sector. The galaxy had paused, waiting, not knowing whether this was a threat or a warning. Arthur's eyes remained calm, calculating. Every second passed according to his plan, every alien reaction measured. He had not come to start a war, but to ensure that the galaxy remembered humanity, not as weak, not as naive, not as foolish, but as survivors, strategists, and architects of power they could not yet comprehend. A soft vibration traveled through the chamber floor, subtle but unmistakable. The oldest species, the ones who had witnessed the first human expansions, stiffened. They remembered tales of vanished fleets, of technology that outpaced their own, of humans who disappeared into the void and returned decades later. Now they felt that presence again, anchored in one old man. Arthur Hale's voice, calm and unwavering, filled the chamber one last time before the power returned fully to the Council systems. "You wanted to see humanity's reach. You will. Not through destruction, but through understanding. Watch closely. The lights flickered and stabilized. The holographic Earth receded, leaving only a faint glow in the chamber. The council remained silent, tense. Every representative knew one truth. They had underestimated the old human, and far from them, orbiting quietly near Jupiter, the dormant human constructs stirred just slightly, sensing the presence of their last link. A single old man who had reminded the galaxy that even the smallest species could carry unimaginable power. The trial had only just begun. The chamber lights flickered once more, sending jagged shadows across the rows of alien representatives. The holographic Earth at the center pulsed steadily, glowing with a strange golden light that seemed to reach into every corner of the Galactic Council Hall. Hundreds of species leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide, tentacles twitching, wings shivering, claws tapping nervously against their desks. The room had never felt so tense. The Chancellor, four golden eyes wide with disbelief, slammed his clawed hand against the podium. "Human, explain yourself now." "Every system in this chamber, every network in this station has been compromised by your species."
"How is this possible?"
Arthur Hale remained calm, standing in the holding corridor just a few meters away from the chamber. His gray hair shimmered faintly in the dim light, and his old hands rested lightly on the railing before him. He spoke quietly, yet the council's translators picked up his voice clearly. "You wanted a demonstration. I am showing you our preparedness." The Chancellor's tail lashed across the floor. "Preparedness? This is interference. This is an act of aggression." Arthur shook his head slowly. "No, not aggression. Observation, understanding. Humanity plans for every possibility. You are seeing the result of decades of silent preparation." A young octopoid analyst from the outer edge of the chamber's tiers leaned toward her colleagues. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "This is impossible. The signals, the constructs, they have been dormant for 50 years. No human could maintain a connection this long." Arthur's voice echoed again, calm and deliberate. "You underestimate the human mind. You measure age in physical years. We measure age in understanding and experience. I have waited, watched, and learned. I am the connection." Outside, in the vast stretches of the outer solar system, the constructs near Jupiter stirred. Massive human-made structures long thought dismantled after the Titan Wars, now activated in subtle ways. Golden circuits traced across their metallic hulls, faint pulses lighting up their surfaces. Each one was enormous, larger than the Council's observation stations, older than many of the civilizations present in the chamber. The first Council drones detected movement. Alarms blared, lights flashed, and panic rippled across the chamber. "They are activating." "The human constructs are activating," shouted a crystalline delegate, her body glowing with frantic light. The Chancellor's voice shook. "Contain them. Shut them down immediately." Arthur did not respond verbally. He did not need to. Every pulse from his wrist device synchronized with the construct's neural networks, creating a link between Earth, the constructs, and the chamber. The Council's attempts to interfere were slow, ineffective. The constructs did not move to attack, yet the presence of their activity was enough. They radiated potential, the kind of potential that could topple fleets, redirect planetary orbits, or erase entire systems if humans chose to. In the chamber, alien whispers turned into open discussion, then into heated debate. A bird-like representative flapped his metallic wings nervously. "They said the Titans were decommissioned decades ago. Every report confirmed it. How can they still exist?" Arthur's voice broke the tension again. "You assume we are limited by your observation. Humanity's greatest strength is its foresight. We do not act unless necessary. We hide what is not needed, preserve what cannot be replaced, and wait for the right moment to reveal it." The Chancellor slammed his claws down again. "You are bluffing. You cannot possibly control constructs of this scale alone. You are a single man." Arthur smiled faintly. "Alone, no, but connected. The Titans were never meant to be weapons of war. They are safeguards. You threatened us, and now you are learning why we prepare." A faint vibration traveled through the chamber floor, subtle but unmistakable. The oldest species present stiffened, remembering the early Terran expansion. Humans had once vanished from known space, leaving fleets and technology behind, never to be seen for decades. The memory of those disappearances had become legend. whispered among the oldest races as stories of a species that could vanish and return with unimaginable power. The pulse in the chamber intensified. Every display, every hologram, and every monitoring system flickered as the constructs near Jupiter reacted to Arthur's mental commands. The golden lines of energy connecting the structures spread across space like veins of light, stretching from the orbiting station to the distant moons and planets of the system. "Contain him," shouted the Chancellor, voice trembling. "Do not let him interfere further." But containment was impossible. The constructs were too large, too complex, too well hidden for the Council to effect from here. Every attempt to isolate the human signal was thwarted by systems he had designed decades ago, long before many of these alien species had even left their homeworlds. A young crystalline delegate's body flickered with panic. "This is beyond comprehension. They have controlled networks, fleets, and systems we believed lost for generations. How?" Arthur leaned forward, eyes calm, his voice low and deliberate. "The galaxy measures power by force. Humans measure it by knowledge. Every system you see responding, it is not being attacked. It is being understood, and it will not act until humanity decides it must." Outside, near Jupiter, the constructs moved in concert for the first time in 50 years. Massive arms, sensors, and modules shifted with precision, coordinating silently. Each pulse, each movement was controlled by Arthur's neural link, a connection older and deeper than any AI the Council had ever encountered. The chamber's atmosphere grew heavier with tension. Delegates whispered urgently to one another, realizing that the old human before them was not bluffing. The systems he controlled, the constructs he activated, were remnants of humanity's hidden history, secrets designed to survive even the most powerful interstellar threats. Arthur spoke again, his voice carrying calm authority. "The Titans were not built for destruction. They were built for preservation. You thought them gone. I preserved them. And now you see why we must never be underestimated." The Chancellor's four eyes glared at him, voice tight with fear and frustration. "Human, if you have this power, then why have you not acted against the Council before? You could have destroyed us all." Arthur tilted his head, expression unreadable. "Because humanity values restraint. We act only when forced, only when our survival is at stake. Today you have forced the galaxy to acknowledge our existence not through war, but through the reminder of what we can do. You mocked us. You underestimated us. That mistake is yours alone." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Even the young delegates, who had grown up in a galaxy where humans were considered minor, began to understand the scale of what they were witnessing. One by one, whispers of fear, awe, and respect spread across the room. A young ambassador from a water-based species, her body trembling, asked quietly, What else do they possess that we do not know of?" Arthur's smile was faint but confident. "Everything we have preserved, everything we have hidden waits. You will see only what we choose to show. The rest remains ours until needed." A murmur of panic rose from the chamber as the implications sank in. The Council had spent centuries measuring strength, war potential, and diplomacy. They had never anticipated that one human, an old man, could control networks, constructs, and knowledge older than some of the civilizations present. The Chancellor's voice broke the silence. "You are a threat. You must be contained." Arthur stepped back from the railing, voice calm and even. "I am not a threat. I am a reminder. You called humanity to account. You expected a display of weakness. Instead, you have witnessed preparation, patience, and foresight. We are not reckless. We are ready." Outside, the constructs continued to pulse, their golden lines stretching further into space. Each one represented decades of human engineering, secrecy, and strategy. The galaxy's most powerful governing body sat in the chamber, trembling, not because the humans had attacked, but because they had shown they could at any time, with precision and understanding far beyond anything the Council could comprehend. The Chancellor's voice softened, almost unconsciously. "What do you want, human?" Arthur's eyes gleamed with quiet authority. "You will act wisely. You will remember humanity, and you will understand that we are always prepared, even when you cannot see us." The chamber fell silent again, the delegates frozen in thought. They had faced countless civilizations, countless threats, but none like this. One old human alone had reminded the galaxy that appearances were deceptive, that patience could outweigh power, and that humanity, seemingly weak, fragile, and young, was capable of far more than anyone had ever believed. Far from the Council, in orbit near Jupiter, the constructs shimmered faintly, synchronized with Arthur's mind. The galaxy had begun to understand. Humans were no longer to be dismissed, and the old human remained calm, a single observer among the stars, knowing that this was only the beginning of what the galaxy would have to learn. The council chamber shivered with unease. The golden pulse of Earth's hologram, projected at the center of the massive room, continued to expand, each rhythm synchronized with the constructs near Jupiter. The delegates, hundreds of species across the galaxy, leaned forward, instinctively aware that something far beyond their understanding was happening. Even the young, confident representatives who had laughed at the human envoy now whispered nervously among themselves. The Chancellor's 4 golden eyes narrowed. "Human, you have disrupted the Council. You have interfered with our systems, our fleets, our networks. Explain yourself." Arthur Hale stood calmly in his holding area, the faint glow from his wrist device illuminating his lined face. His gray hair caught the dim light as he raised his head, his eyes steady and unwavering. "I have done nothing but remind you," he said. "You wanted proof of humanity's reach. You have it now." A ripple of murmurs passed through the chamber. Delegates exchanged terrified glances. Some were old enough to remember the stories of humanity's early expansion, the fleets that vanished, the technology that seemed impossible, the titans that had been said to control entire star systems. None had expected that such remnants still existed, waiting quietly for decades. The Chancellor's tail lashed across the floor, striking the podium with a thud. "You are bluffing. One human cannot command constructs of this scale. You are alone." Arthur's lips curved slightly, almost imperceptibly. "Alone in body, perhaps, but not in influence. You see only what you can measure. I see what has always existed." A crystalline representative, her body flickering nervously, leaned forward. "The constructs? They are activating! Our scans indicate movement. And not just movement, coordination, intelligence." Arthur's voice echoed across the Council's network, calm but commanding. "The Titans were never weapons. They are safeguards. They were designed to ensure humanity's survival if the galaxy ever underestimated us. Today you are learning why we plan ahead." The chamber erupted in frantic whispers. Alien delegates who had once mocked humanity now gestured frantically to each other, trying to understand the scale of what was happening. A gas-based species floated in panic, sending a network of luminous signals to their allies. "They control fleets we thought destroyed, constructs that were dormant. How is this possible?" Arthur did not answer directly. He did not need to. Every system he touched, every network he accessed, sent a subtle, undeniable message. Humanity was not weak. Humanity had patience, strategy, and foresight that far exceeded the Council's understanding. The Chancellor roared, voice trembling with anger and fear. "Contain him. Lock down every system he can reach. Cut all communication." But containment was impossible. Every attempt to isolate the human envoy failed. The constructs near Jupiter responded instantly to his commands, adjusting, coordinating, pulsing with silent energy. Every system the Council relied on, communications, observation, power management, faltered under subtle manipulations. Arthur's control was not aggressive, but it was absolute. A young representative from a bird-like species, wings trembling, spoke urgently. "If he can maintain control over these constructs, if he can access our network so easily, then he is more than one man. He is a node, a hub. He represents humanity's hidden power." Arthur's voice reached them again. "You call me old. You call me fragile. You assume that because we have not revealed our strength, we are weak. But humanity does not act rashly. We prepare, we preserve, we wait. And when the moment comes, you see our true power." The holographic Earth pulsed brighter, the golden threads linking it to the constructs extended, touching representations of other planets and stations in the solar system. Every pulse, every shimmer, carried a subtle message. Humanity could influence far more than the Council imagined, and all without a single act of aggression. The Chancellor's claws flexed. "Explain yourself, human." "Why show this now?" Arthur's eyes narrowed slightly. "Because the galaxy has forgotten. You judged us as weak. You assumed that appearances defined reality, Today, you see that the galaxy's perception of humans was incomplete. You mocked the old, the small, the underestimated, and now, you are witnessing the result. A low hum began to resonate through the chamber, vibrating the floor beneath every delegate's feet. The oldest species present stiffened, eyes widening with recognition. This was no ordinary signal. This was the presence of humans' long-hidden architecture, constructs designed to endure and influence over decades, quietly waiting for their final link to awaken them. One by one, the council realized the implication. The old human was not merely a representative. He was a strategist, a commander, a living bridge to technology the galaxy had forgotten existed. Every fleet, every system, every archive the council had believed beyond human reach was now accessible through him. A young, crystalline delegate whispered, voice trembling, "He has access to everything humanity ever built, and we cannot stop him." Arthur's lips curved slightly. "Not to destroy, not to conquer, to remind. You brought us here, called us to account, mocked us, underestimated us. All I have done is ensure you understand the consequences of your arrogance." The Chancellor's voice broke. "Do you intend to wage war on the Council?" Arthur shook his head. "Humanity does not seek war. But we will not be surprised. We will not be caught off guard. Today you have seen only a fraction of what we preserve, what we protect, and what we control. You have learned that the old, the quiet, the underestimated can wield influence far beyond your calculations." A sudden flicker of movement on the holographic Earth drew every delegate's gaze. The constructs near Jupiter shifted simultaneously, forming geometric patterns in orbit. Golden lines of energy crisscrossed the structures, pulsing with rhythm, signaling coordination and awareness. The galaxy had seen similar formations only in myths, fleets that vanished, ships that defied physics, networks that influenced stars. Arthur spoke softly, yet the words echoed in every language, every frequency. "We do not act without reason, but we act when necessary. Today you witnessed preparation. Tomorrow remember it." The chamber was silent. Even the most arrogant representatives had no words. The young, confident species who had laughed at the human envoy now looked nervous, understanding for the first time that Earth was far from defenseless. The Chancellor's claws dug into the podium, knuckles white. "You are remarkable, but this cannot continue. Humanity cannot be allowed to manipulate the galaxy without oversight." Arthur's eyes gleamed faintly, calm and unwavering. "Oversight? You assumed control over our systems. You assumed judgment over our people. You called for our presence to accuse us. This is the oversight you will remember. Caution before underestimating those you think powerless." The chamber fell into tense silence. Delegates glanced at each other, whispering, realizing the truth. They had brought the humans to the council expecting weakness. They had expected to witness submission. Instead, they had seen strategy, foresight, and control that no one species, not even the oldest races in the galaxy, could rival. Outside the chamber, the constructs continued their slow, deliberate coordination. Each pulse, each movement radiated the quiet intelligence of centuries of planning. The golden lines of energy connected the solar system in a lattice of influence, not aggression. It was a reminder. Humanity's power had never been measured by fleets or weapons alone, but by patience, planning, and the understanding that control without exposure was the ultimate strength. Arthur Hale leaned back slightly, fingers lightly brushing the railing. "You mocked the old," he whispered to himself, a small smile on his lips. "And now you see what patience can accomplish." The Council had not acted yet. They had not fired weapons, launched fleets, or issued ultimatums, and yet they feared the humans more than any army, more than any weapon, because they realized that power could exist in a single mind, connected to history, intelligence, and technology far older and wiser than anything they had faced before. Arthur's voice, calm and deliberate, resonated one final time through the chamber before the systems began to stabilize. "This is a reminder, not a threat. You will remember it. And when the time comes again, the galaxy will know that the underestimated can command forces beyond imagination." The golden pulse of Earth receded slowly from the chamber, leaving the council in stunned silence. The delegates stared at one another, uncertain, shaken, and in some corners trembling. Humanity had revealed just enough to command respect, to instill awe, and to warn the galaxy. Appearances were deceptive. The old quiet human had shown that a single person could embody decades of preparation, foresight and influence, and in orbit near Jupiter, The constructs, long dormant, continued to shimmer faintly, awaiting the moment they would be needed again. The galaxy had learned a vital lesson. Humanity's patience had endured. Its quiet strength had been revealed, and the Council would never forget the old human who reminded them of it. The Galactic Council chamber had never felt so silent. The holographic Earth hovered in the center, still glowing faintly, a reminder of the golden pulse that had rippled through the room. Delegates from hundreds of species leaned forward in their seats, whispers dying in their throats as the weight of reality settled over them. Humanity had not attacked. Humanity had merely reminded the galaxy that it existed, and that reminder alone carried authority beyond imagination. Arthur Hale stood in the holding corridor, calm and composed. The faint hum of his wrist device resonated quietly, syncing with every construct in orbit near Jupiter. He had watched the Council tremble, their fear and respect growing with every pulse. And now the time had come for the final revelation, the truth behind the old human, the power of his people, and the galaxy's underestimation. The Chancellor's 4 golden eyes bored into the corridor's monitors. "Human," he demanded, voice echoing with tension. "You have disrupted the Council, shown us forces we cannot control, and yet you do not strike. Why?" Arthur's voice, calm and deliberate, carried into the chamber. "Because strength is measured not by destruction, but by restraint. Humanity acts only when necessary. You have forced acknowledgement. That is enough for now." A crystalline ambassador's body flickered nervously. "Acknowledgement is not enough. They have access to fleets we thought destroyed, systems we thought secure, and knowledge we believed lost. How is this possible?" Arthur smiled faintly, a faint glint in his eyes. "Because humans prepare for what others cannot see. We preserve what the galaxy assumes gone. We learn while others assume they are superior. And we wait." The chamber erupted into murmurs again. Delegates whispered urgently, realization dawning. Humanity's influence was not just in its fleets, not just in its constructs, but in its foresight. One old human had demonstrated control over decades of hidden preparation. That single fact unsettled the most powerful species in the galaxy. The Chancellor leaned forward, voice harsh but strained with uncertainty. "Explain yourself, human. Tell us your true purpose. Why reveal only part of your power?" Arthur's eyes gleamed with quiet authority. "Because it is not time to act. Humanity does not act blindly. We show only what is necessary to ensure survival and understanding. The galaxy judged us as weak, and the moment for correction has arrived." Suddenly, the golden pulse from Earth intensified. The holographic projection expanded, casting radiant light over every delegate. The constructs near Jupiter, long dormant, shifted as if sensing their commander's intention. Massive arms and modules moved in perfect unison, their faint lights tracing patterns of strategy across space. A young representative from a bird-like species flapped wings nervously. "They are orchestrating something. Coordination beyond any fleet we know. They could strike any system at will, yet they remain calm." Arthur's voice reached them again. "You see coordination. You call it threat. But it is a lesson. One human, one mind can synchronize forces far older and stronger than your fleets. You underestimate what is quiet, what is patient, and what is unseen." The Chancellor pounded the podium. "This is unacceptable. The Council cannot allow humanity to exist unchecked. You must give us assurances, human, or face judgment." Arthur's calm voice cut through the tension. "I give assurances by my presence and restraint. I do not need to fight to demonstrate power. You have seen enough to understand the consequences of underestimating humanity. Do not test further," a crystalline delegate whispered almost to herself. "He is not bluffing. The old human is the key to the Titans. Every fleet, every network, every archive we believe destroyed is under his control." Arthur's eyes softened slightly, though his posture remained firm. "You mock the old, you dismiss the quiet, you assume weakness based on appearance. You will remember this moment. The galaxy has never faced humans as a collective because we have hidden in patience, growing, learning, preparing. I am only the first demonstration." The Chancellor's voice dropped, uncertainty replacing anger. "If what you say is true, then humanity is far more dangerous than we imagined. And yet, you do not attack. Why?" Arthur leaned forward, resting hands lightly on the railing. "Because humanity understands consequences. We do not strike unless we must. We prepare to survive, not to dominate. But if you challenge us, you will see that our preparation is absolute. A young octopoid representative's tentacles trembled. The constructs, they are ancient. They were thought lost after the Titan Wars. How can one human control them? Arthur smiled faintly. Because they were built with foresight. Humanity does not abandon its work. We preserve it, we enhance it, and we wait for the right moment to remind the galaxy who we are. Suddenly, the holographic Earth shifted, showing a subtle but unmistakable pattern. Golden lines extended from the planet to distant fleets and stations. Every pulse was deliberate, every movement synchronized. The Council realized that the humans had mapped the galaxy's activity, their knowledge surpassing centuries of interstellar politics, strategy, and control. The Chancellor's tail lashed nervously. Human, you have power beyond reckoning. How many of your species can do this? Arthur's voice was steady, carrying a quiet finality. One is enough to remind the galaxy. But humanity is many. We are patient, intelligent, and cautious. The galaxy has judged us by our youth, by appearances. You will never make that mistake again. The chamber was silent. Every species present had felt the lesson. They had called humanity weak, dismissed its influence, mocked its appearance, and now realized their error. One old human had demonstrated patience, strategy, and influence beyond any single race's comprehension. Arthur turned slightly, facing the corridor, then spoke one final message that echoed across the Council's communication networks. You wanted a representative. I am the representative of humanity's foresight. You called us primitive, emotional, unpredictable. Today you see that patience, planning, and preparation can outweigh brute strength. Do not underestimate the quiet, the old, the unseen. Humanity endures, and when necessary, humanity prevails. The holographic Earth pulsed one last time, golden lines tracing the construct's positions near Jupiter. The pulse slowly faded, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Delegates from hundreds of species realized the truth. Humans had hidden power, unmatched intelligence, and patience that no one had measured. One frail old human had shown them more than any fleet or weapon ever could. The Chancellor's voice, quieter now, almost resigned, spoke. We underestimated you. Humanity is formidable. Arthur nodded slowly. Not formidable in anger, not in conquest, but in preparation. Remember this. The galaxy will never forget that humanity cannot be judged by appearances alone. Delegates exchanged glances, uncertainty and awe, blending in equal measure. They had mocked the old human, laughed at the frail appearance, assumed weakness. And now they understood that one individual could embody the hidden power, intelligence and strategy of an entire species. Far from the Council chamber, near Jupiter, the human constructs pulsed faintly, their synchronization complete. They remained dormant, yet ready, as if sensing that their commander's purpose had been fulfilled. A warning, a demonstration, and a reminder of what humanity could achieve. Arthur Hale leaned back in his chair, tired but satisfied. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would not soon forget. The old human, underestimated, mocked, and dismissed, had reminded the most powerful civilizations that appearances could deceive, that patience and intelligence could surpass fleets and weapons, and that humanity's survival strategy was unmatched. The Council chamber remained silent. The delegates understood that they had faced not just a representative, not just a human, but the living embodiment of a species that had survived, learned, and prepared while the galaxy assumed they were inconsequential. And the old human remained calm, knowing that in showing restraint, he had revealed the greatest power humanity possessed, the ability to endure, to prepare, and to command respect without a single act of aggression. The galaxy had mocked the old human, and now, it would never forget him. The lesson was clear: never underestimate humanity.